crime has been committed in the last couple years. Cinematic crime. Sometime in recent history, there is a film that has basically just disappeared. And this used to happen, old silent movies. There's tons of them that are just, we know they exist, but no one knows if there's a copy, a film reel that actually is in working condition. Well, this is a movie shot less than 20 years ago, and it is absolutely unavailable unless you're willing to spend $100 on an out of print Blu-ray copy.
What are we?
The movie's called The Fall, and it was released in 2006. It is, I think, arguably one of the most beautiful movies ever made. It's actually wild how insanely gorgeous this movie is. The plot is fine. It's it's about this 1920s stuntman who's laid up in a hospital after a sort of stunt went wrong. He meets this little girl who is recovering at the same hospital, and he basically tells her sort of this evolving tale that she becomes very invested in.
It's stupid.
What would you do better?
The story goes on, and she starts, sort of influencing how the story unfolds versus maybe what his version is, or misinterpreting some of the things that he's telling her.
But the priest is good man.
Well, yeah. The stick was for a snake.
Sort of that same, Princess Bride, there's a story being told, and, you are sort of being captivated by this story equally as an audience. And it's got, a certain, old film appreciation. But the biggest piece of this is it was directed by Tarsem Singh, who had done at least a movie before this called The Cell with Jennifer Lopez, which was again very visually arresting sort of movie, decent plot, but really much more about the visuals. And he'd go on to do, a handful of other projects. He did The Immortals. He did Selfless, which was a little more of a straightforward sort of sci-fi action thing. But this movie, The Fall, he basically self-funded it, and used his commercial career. He's a pretty big commercial director. He would just go to all these locations and sort of do these international location scouts that are basically being funded by, some company that's paying him to do a shoot there. And then he would go on site, and do a piece of this movie. And supposedly it took 4 years to finish production, and he hired a lot of the crew that he would have on these commercials. So it was sort of, you get hired on these commercials, but maybe also doing a little work on this movie as sort of like a smaller, a smaller favor. He paid everybody. My understanding was sort of like everybody got the same sort of, flat rate, which is less common. On film sets, usually sort of like there's a hierarchy of who's getting paid the most and who's getting paid the least. And apparently everybody's just sort of getting the same payment for this, but it was all out of pocket. And eventually 4 years later, and 20 plus countries, some are, 24, 28 countries of filming later, he had this finished movie that no sets, all genuine practical locations across the globe. Stars Lee Pace as this, laid up 1920s stuntman and the sort of protagonist in the fictionalized story that he's telling. And this is sort of Lee Pace before he was a known entity. Obviously he's in Foundation now with Apple, and he's been in some other TV shows and movies, over the years, and increasingly sort of has a higher profile. But this was, he's sort of an unknown at the time, and a stellar performance, these sort of varied parts of the role. There's even shifting as the story goes on. But really what you're here for is just these gorgeous visuals. So unfortunately, like I said, you can't buy this movie anymore. You can't rent it. You can't stream it. And I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling there's some rights issues surrounding it. It's a sort of loose adaptation of this early 1980s Bulgarian movie called Yo Ho Ho. That's again this sort of story about these pirates, and it's being told, and so there's some definite similarities about the narrative. I don't have any great insights of if it's some kind of rights issue of because of that adaptation element, or if there's just some real ownership questions that have happened in the last 15 years or so. But whatever the explanation, the end result is you can't really easily watch this movie at all. And if you can, it's available on DVD for $40, $50, or it's available on Blu-ray for 80, 100 more dollars. Really not convenient for most people. I did manage to get my hands on the HD copy of it, and there's a couple deleted scenes, which add a little bit to the movie. I've taken the whole thing, re-edited in the deleted scenes, the 2 deleted scenes that exist, and then upscaled the thing to 4K, which if this ever comes out again, that's the sort of treatment it deserves. It seems there, in at least one scene, there was, maybe some digital effects done, VFX, that left a little artifacting. It seems like it wasn't from the copy, unless that's from, scanning it to, to Blu-ray or something, that there was a sort of error in place.
I'm stronger now.
But otherwise, absolutely gorgeous movie that, even if you're not going to be enthralled by the story, just worth it to watch for the visuals alone. And just the globe-trotting adventure of the whole thing. So happy to share this. Hopefully it becomes more available someday. Hopefully it gets that sort of 4K release that it really deserves. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that this release by me becomes unnecessary someday very soon. So anyway, hope people enjoyed this. Maybe not as ambitious as some of my other edits, but just something I felt like needed to be done once I found out that the movie's just being lost to time. Hopefully everybody enjoys this. If you want to see more of what projects I've come out with in the future, subscribe to the channel. Hopefully you enjoy this video, kind of enjoy the little preservation and fan edit projects that I'm taking on. And we'll see you guys on the next one.